Abdication in Victoria 3 is broken. What do I mean? Well, if we were to abdicate William of Hanover here while in a revolution and we click the middle option, instead of getting our heir of Victoria as the ruler, we get this random guy who happens to be a general. In fact, they're always generals. So why is that happening? I took a look at the code to see what's wrong, and the problem is that it's killing the monarch and then checking if an heir exists, but by killing the monarch, an heir will always not exist because that heir will have become the monarch. And then it checks if a general exists, and if a general exists, it sets them as the ruler. So you might be wondering, how is this actually useful? Well, for example, the United Kingdom has this character, Charles Dickens, which spawns in roughly 1837, and he has the cautious trait, which gives minus 20% infamy generation, and literary, which gives plus 25% infamy decay. So he's a very nice character to get as your ruler. So what we can do to do that is grant him command of the military. We can cancel passing the law we were doing to abdicate or to make the movement mad. Press abdicate, but don't actually abdicate. Now wait for the movement to stop being revolutionary. Now we can go in this panel, look for all of our generals and admirals, and fire everyone here, which is not the character we want to make our ruler, which is in this case Charles Dickens. Make sure, well, I don't know why it reset like that, but yeah, we're gonna do that. Now I've got Charles Dickens as our only general. So now we can click our event here, the abdication of William of Hanover, and we'll get as our ruler, Charles Dickens. Now there's another oddity, which is that we can't abdicate in this case, even though William of Hanover himself would oppose the move to ethnostate, because reformers do not, and William of Hanover's trait that he has does not. Because I'm pretty sure those are the things it actually considers here, is the base ideology plus this, or his ideology. It doesn't consider his base ideologies. So now I'm going to do a quick little guide on how to get Charles Dickens as your ruler consistently as the UK, and then we'll get into how to get a cautious on pretty much any country. The single most important step is you need to release Hanover as a subject, because the Hanoverian secession gives your ruler a super high chance to die every month. So if you do this, you'll lose this journal entry, which removes the super high chance for William of Hanover to die. And if you get Victoria of Hanover as your ruler, you cannot abdicate because Victoria does not have an heir. So now after you've done that, you're going to want to be researching nationalism, and you're going to try to research nationalism as fast as possible. We're going to start out by building 10 construction sectors in Midlands, followed by 20 universities in the home counties, because we want to get these as fast as possible, and the construction sectors will help out with that. So I'm going to be going up on taxes to make our political movements more activist, because we want to try to get this British supremacist movement as much activism as possible. Now I'm simply going to unpause for a little bit here. You can get randomly the trade unions will either start out marginalized or demarginalized. It doesn't really matter for this run, but it does just be a random thing that happens. I don't know why. Anyway, somewhere around May, you can wait till later. You're going to want to start enacting open borders or no migration controls, because this will make the British supremacist movement very big mad at you. It'll get up to roughly 75% activism, which is exactly what we want to get. You need to hope you do not get cursed by the RNG gods and spawn a reactionary movement. If that happens, it's Jover. Okay, you also want to swap over your universities to philosophy department. I believe this should trigger an event. Yep, the philosophy department. I think you want to do this not day one, because otherwise I'm pretty sure this event might get voided. You should get 25% university throughput with that, which will help out with researching nationalism. The reason we're researching nationalism is it unlocks ethnostate, and the British supremacist movement wants ethnostate. We can't abdicate to a law that we don't have unlocked in terms of tech, so this is the way that I'm using to get it. It might be possible to roll a market liberal petite bourgeoisie on your exile and then try to make the labor movement mad, but I don't know if this works. And it's probably very RNG. Now, it's the very start of 1837, and we get Charles Dickens. I don't know if he's guaranteed to spawn at the very start of 1837. I feel like I pretty consistently get him at roughly this time, but he might not necessarily spawn at exactly this time. Anyway, we got him, which is very nice. So I have just noticed that we spawned a reaction movement on the 18th of August, 1836. This is pretty unfortunate, but we've gone down on taxes to hopefully reduce turmoil, because as long as this movement stays under 10% more activist than this movement, we should be fine. The reason we are not okay with the reaction movement, by the way, is there's actually no law that they would like us to pass. They already like all of our laws perfectly. Okay, we're now about to get nationalism. Luckily, we get this right before the reaction movement is going to be passing the British supremacist movement in activism. Now, we can't abdicate the throne because we have a reformer PB, but we can just swap our government to kick these guys out of government, exile the PB leader, and then we don't actually need to swap governments again. We can just abdicate the throne here. Of course, don't click the button. Now we stop passing no migration controls. the British supremacist movement should go away, and we can fire all of our generals and admirals real quick here. Retire commander, and then retire all these commanders here. I'm just spamming C to quickly retire the commanders without having to click the confirm button. Now we can go here. Oh yeah, we need to quickly grant command to Charles Dickens. We'll go here, and we've got Charles Dickens as our ruler before the start of 1838. So now for the non-UK specific one, you've got about 3 options. One is that you can search for a cautious general here in your general pool. Eventually you should hopefully find one, as it is one of the character traits a general can have. We're not exactly getting particularly lucky here, but you can eventually get one. Now you can see here, we do eventually get one, but this does come at the downside of potentially having to hire an insane amount of generals, which will then cost you a bunch of interest group approval when you have to fire all these guys to get them as your ruler. So the alternative is you can simply look for a cautious guy in your agitator pool. Now this option is very impractical, but it's the only way to get a literary as well as cautious on the ruler without it being Britain. You can simply have no generals and no admirals, and then when you click this, you'll get some random interest group traits, and you can reset what the randomness is by exiling a random character, ticking 1 tick or whatever, and you'll get a different thing every time if you do that. And now you can see we just get this random character here. He wasn't that character that already exists in our country. It's just randomly generated, so you can happen to roll cautious on this trait and literary on this trait, and then you'll be good. I'm going to get into which revolutions I think you should pop on which countries to be able to abdicate. So for example, on France, I think the optimal first revolution to pop is the radical movement by passing no schools. But I think first you want to pass a laissez-faire, because doing this does tend to tank the clout of the landowners and industrialists, making it really hard to pass laissez-faire. Austria and Russia can fairly easily trigger absolutist movements. However, they will set you back to traditionalism, so I'm not really sure whether this is worth it or not. Oh yeah, also for Russia, you have to first pass a law other than traditionalism before you can then do the revolution. Although Prussia does not start with a radical movement, they seem to very consistently generate a radical movement in the first few months of the game. So I recommend using a radical movement on Prussia as well. You'd start passing no schools for that, and then it would set you onto, I believe, universal suffrage. And that's pretty much all the major countries I could find an easy way to do it on. For example, Spain does not start with an heir, so they can't do it. America does not start with monarchy, so they can't do it. And the Ottomans have an intelligentsia ruler, which makes it very hard to find a successful abdication. So yeah, that's the end of the video. Goodbye!